There is a mistake that I see so many people making when they do their first cut, trying to actually achieve a new body composition, get a six-pack, maybe do their first bodybuilding show, whatever it may be. There is a problem which so many people make, and unfortunately, I, at least when I was younger, am not immune to this either. And to illustrate an example of this, I want to actually do a little bit of a case study. This is actually a personal training and online coaching client of mine. We're gonna keep him anonymous for the purposes of this video, so I'm just gonna call him Bob. Now, Bob came to me with this starting physique, and this is around 215 pounds, average-ish height, kind of similar to mine. And over the last few months, we have worked diligently, and he has done very well. He has lost weight at a pretty, somewhat aggressive speed. Not too aggressive to the point where it's dangerous, but definitely a little bit on the higher end of the spectrum. So he's done a great job, and we have lost a good amount of weight, 25 pounds, resulting in this physique, which actually isn't that crazy of a change. Now, I mean, in my case, as someone who's done this hundreds of times, and I've worked with many people over the last pretty much like 5+ years now, I know that this is fantastic. So many improvements have been made. He's dropped overall, his body fat percentage has probably gone down like 5%, if not more. His chest looks way better in the sense that it's no longer man boobs. Now you're actually starting to see some muscle separation in terms of the pecs. His waist has come down dramatically. He probably needs a whole new wardrobe in terms of pants because he's lost like 3-4 inches off his waistline. That being said, Bob, in this case, he was happy, but he was kind of surprised and a little disappointed because in his own words, he thought he would look way leaner having lost this much weight. And the interesting thing about this is that I made this exact same mistake the first time I did my first real bodybuilding cuts. I remember I was 23 years old. I had spent years, pretty much the better part of my, my time at university, bulking up. I had got up to in my case, pretty large 200 pounds in body weights, and now it was time for me to roll up my sleeves and do my first real bodybuilding show. And I remember one thing, this is such a mistake now that I look back in retrospect. I started to get really overconfident. I started looking at the show that I was gonna do, like the prior year's results, and I started finding these guys, the same show, my same height category, and I saw that a lot of these guys, similar height to me, were around 165, 170 on stage. Me at the time being 200 pounds and incorrectly assuming I only need to lose around 20 pounds or so, I was thinking, holy shit, if I drop 20 pounds, show up on stage weighing 180, 10-15 pounds bigger than everyone else. By comparison, I'm gonna look like fucking Super Saiyan Vegeta. And not even regular Vegeta. No, we're talking about Cell Saga Vegeta when he looks like he was on fucking Tren. Obviously, reality had something different in mind for me. I showed up to that competition weighing 178 pounds, and although I didn't look bad, and I still placed decent in both bodybuilding and men's physique, I was not even sub 10% body fat, which for regular life, yeah, don't get me wrong, this looks fantastic and I look better than 99% of people out there, but for an actual legit bodybuilding show,
Hey, fatty, you are fat!
But kind of the weird thing about this situation, and what makes this video kind of different from all of my other videos I do, where there's kind of like a problem and we need to fix it, so we do this and that, and great. This time around, that's not really the case, because this isn't a problem of outcome. This is fundamentally a problem of unrealistic expectation. Big thank you to Ombre for sponsoring this video. So in recent years, I have seen more and more people talking about gut health. See, living in your gut is something like 300 to 500 kinds of bacteria, which all serve different critical functions. Having too much, too little, or just an insufficient variety of these bacteria can result in certain medical ailments. We're talking things like excessive bloating, frequent constipation, abdominal pain, weakened immune system, acne, difficulty maintaining a healthy weight, even your mental health. All of this can be greatly impacted by your gut health, your microbiome health. Fortunately, this is where Ombre comes in. Ombre makes it really easy to evaluate your gut health by offering an at-home test you can use to measure your bacteria levels simply by Testing your poop. And yes, this may sound a bit awkward, but fortunately their quick and easy home testing kit makes the overall process very simple. I should know, considering I just did that and I got my results a few weeks ago. And although my overall gut health score was not too bad, it did show that my bacteria levels were only 50% optimal, which to be honest is something that concerns me. Fortunately, Ombre has solutions for this as well, with detailed breakdowns of the foods you should consume more or less of to improve your gut health, or if you want to get really serious about your gut health, they can develop a customized probiotic protocol for you as well. So if you're struggling with any of the symptoms I mentioned, and you want to see if your poop has the answers, visit tryombre.com/VitruvianPhysique and get $30 off. Alright, reason number 1 is mathematical. And honestly guys, this is pretty much the most important one. Let's say on your entire frame, person A has 50 pounds of fat. He's a chunky boy, to say the least. And person B has 20 pounds. Let's say they both lose 5 pounds of body fat. What is the overall impact does that have on the total amount of body fat on both of these individuals? Because in this case, 5 pounds out of 50, this person has actually technically lost 10% of his total body fat. By the way, we're not talking about 10, like overall body fat percentage, because losing 10% would be insane. No, we are talking about just specifically of your fat mass. How much did you lose as a percentage of that, just to make things clear? And person B, even though he's losing the same 5 pounds, the same actual raw magnitude of body fat, this one, 5 out of 20, is 25% of total body fat remaining on this individual's frame. So, same amount of body fat, much larger actual percentage of total body fat remaining, and therefore this is going to give you sort of a much bigger visual impact and visual improvement. If you have a good amount of body fat, you might lose 5, 10, 20 pounds, and that's fantastic. You're healthier, you're on your way, you're still fat. Because you've only done a small chunk of your overall the work that you need to do. This is also a bigger reason why losing body fat is typically a lot easier in the beginning. I've worked with so many people kind of in the higher levels of body fat who for the first few months, they feel fine. Hunger really isn't that bad. Their performance in the gym is actually going up, which is kind of counterintuitive. How the hell are you getting stronger and feeling good in the gym despite the fact that your calories are down? It's because you have so much additional excess body fat over what your body is ideally going to carry. This is a big reason why, generally speaking, usually fat loss is nowhere near linear. People think that over time, your fat mass, this being time, they think is gonna look like this. Your fat just gradually goes down as you stay on a cut. No, that's not the case. It's kind of like this. Your fat drops very aggressively in the beginning because it's easier, it's newer, you haven't been dieting that long, you are further away from your body's ideal kind of like healthy, normal, athletic range. We're talking kind of, 15 to 20% body fat, give or take. And then towards the end, it slows down considerably. It is not uncommon for me to work with guys who lose upwards of 1% of their body weight on a weekly basis in the beginning, and then slow down to like well over, less than half of that at the end. Because the leaner and leaner they get, going from 25 to 20 to 10 to single digit body fat percentages, it's going to get harder and harder, and it's going to get slower and slower. And what I mentioned earlier is a big reason why. Because every additional pound of body fat that you lose is, generally speaking, going to be harder and going to be slower than the previous pound that you lost. But fortunately, on the flip side, a little bit of a silver lining, this is pretty much the exact opposite if you were to track the visual improvement of body fat. Let's say visual improvement in your physique, it's sort of like, it's like that. Because in the beginning, you going from 30% body fat to 25% body fat, it's like, congratulations, you're still fat. But at the end, going from 15% body fat to 12 to 10 to like 6% where you look like Phil Heath on the Mr. Olympia stage. So this is kind of nice because, you know, although it gets harder and slower, at the same time, the rewards, at least visually speaking, get more significant. Well, maybe not more significant because you're still losing the same actual poundage of fat, but visually speaking, they get more noticeable. I remember I experienced this myself. Going from 200 to 190, yeah, I got a little better, but it's really not that much of an improvement. Maybe I'm not so like bloated and fat, you know, fat face anymore, but I'm still nowhere near like aesthetic or lean or anything like that. Going from 190 to 180, despite the fact that it's the actual same raw poundage of weights, you know, in both of these cases we're talking about 10 pounds, much bigger change. 190 to 180, it's like suddenly, damn, got the six-pack coming in, I'm looking visually better, like this is what I was waiting for. But then going even further, 180 to 170, it's bonkers. Even though I'm losing, again, the actual same poundage of weight, 10 pounds in all of these three scenarios, that last change is the biggest one. That's where I go from kind of looking somewhat lean and, you know, athletic and healthy to just looking stupid. Then it's like, what the fuck is going on? Who has been slipping steroids into my Cheerios? Okay, this next reason, let's say this is your muscle. We'll call this like, is your six-pack. This is, you know, this is all your muscle here, all the good stuff. This is sort of like your subcutaneous body fat layer, and obviously there's more of it because we're gonna assume, let's say this is like 25% body fat. Now let's say you lose some fat, you lose some weight. Okay, you get down to 20% body fat. You did a good job. It's still, you know, a noticeable layer. You're not gonna start seeing actual significant amounts of muscle separation just yet. Yes, you are gonna have benefits in terms of like, you're no longer, you know, you're not gonna have a gut anymore, ideally. You probably lost some of your love handles. You're not gonna have like fat overhanging on your frame, but you're not yet at a point where you're gonna start seeing like legit muscle separation, vascularity, you know, like the actual bodybuilder look. At least not yet. Then let's say you get down to something leaner. Maybe you get down to 15% body fat. Now, maybe it's gonna kind of look a little bit like this, right? Like maybe it's the space has closed enough to the point where now you're gonna start seeing some separation. You're gonna actually be able to tell the difference when you flex your arm between your deltoids, your tricep, your bicep. It's not just like one big sausage as it was kind of like in this scenario. And you can obviously take it further. Once bodybuilders get down to like crazy levels, below 10% body fat, then it's insane. Then it's like the layer is so thin between your skin and your muscle, this actual subcutaneous layer where your body fat sits, that it's almost like the skin, there is no body fat. It's almost like it's just hugging your muscles. It's like a thin layer on a water balloon or something. That's when you start to see some crazy stuff. It almost starts to look like granite or something. It doesn't even start to look like a normal muscle anymore. This is when you start to see crazy stuff. And obviously it's exacerbated. The leaner you get, unfortunately, the more drugs you take in the more advanced and unrecommended, in my opinion, examples and yada yada. It's almost like, unfortunately, you kind of have to do this boring stuff first, where you pay your dues and you go from fat to normal before you can go from normal to, you know, actually looking aesthetic. The next reason for why you might not be seeing the visual changes in your physique from a fat standpoint, despite the fact that you are losing weight overall, is because of body fat distribution differences, both due to your genetics and also partially due to your gender. I actually did a very in-depth video specifically on this topic way back in like 2016, I think it was. But to give you the really quick gist, because it's been a while, your fat cells have certain adrenal receptors on them, which can be activated to stimulate either fat, release, fat mobilization, fat loss, or essentially the opposite. These two receptors would be alpha and beta, but specifically we're talking about beta 2 and alpha 2 adrenal receptors. So technically it's adrenergic receptors. God, I hate that word. Essentially the problem is you do not have the same ratio of these two receptors distributed equally throughout your body in all the fat cells of your body. If you have a certain region of the body, such as, for example, the lower body, typically in women, having a lot more alpha 2 receptors than beta 2, I believe the actual ratio can be, I think it was as high as 9-1 in some of the science that I have read, meaning it is going to be way more difficult for you to lose body fat in that region just from a adrenal receptor standpoint. Same case for men in their sort of belly regions. Kind of like the stereotype of like the guy's beer gut, the beer belly. Yeah, kind of a similar concept. So depending on where, what ratio you have in different parts of your body, this might dictate where you lose body fat. And again, it's not going to be uniform throughout your entire body. My body fat hierarchy, first to go is my back. In fact, not even go because it never came in the first place. My back essentially stays visually 10% body fat perpetually. Next would be the rest of my upper body. We're talking arms, chest, abs start to come in visually. My legs, never. I have competed on stage, on bodybuilding shows, the leanest I have ever been, and I still have legs that look like, bro, did you forget to diet? It's almost like I forgot to diet the lower half of my body. I don't necessarily know why. Well, I'm kidding, I do know why. This is part of the reason why. This is one of the reasons why some people think that they're not losing weight when in reality they are. Maybe because it has happened just everywhere else. Maybe the reason that you're not seeing the fat loss that you would expect for the weight loss that you've achieved is because you actually didn't achieve that weight loss, or at least not as much as you think you did in the first place. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that I always see people making, and I talk about this, I think I do a video on this every 1 to 2 years perpetually because it's such a simple but important solution that people don't do. You're not tracking your weight correctly. If you say, listen Igor, I've dropped 25 pounds, well, where does that number come from in the first place? 25 pounds. Well, that's what you weigh now, subtracted from what you weighed originally. But how did you get that original starting weight? Did you just go on the scale one day and say all right, day 1, I weigh 215? Because if that's the case, maybe that's your starting weight, maybe not. And you might be thinking, what do you mean, maybe not? I mean, see it right there. I'm not blind, I'm not stupid. Yeah, I get that. The problem is your body, it plays tricks on you. Because of fluctuations due to water intake, due to sodium, which pulls and binds water, due to just food timing, food mass, all of these different fluctuations, the male body, especially if you're a bigger guy like me, there have been times when I could fluctuate as much as 3, 4, even 5 pounds in a 24-hour period. That is a lot. So if you happen to say, hey, on day 1, I was 215 pounds. And so that is what I'm going to take as my starting point, and then, wherever I end up, I'm going to say, all right, blah, 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 I've lost 25 pounds. What if in reality, that wasn't really your actual starting weight, your true resting normal body weight? Because had you actually looked at a couple other days, maybe the next day you were 211 pounds. Maybe the day after that you were kind of higher, you were 216, 212, 213, your body fluctuates dramatically, again, due to all these reasons that I mentioned. You cannot look at your body weight on a random, sporadic, day-to-day basis. You need to look at averages. If I ask you what's your body weight, I'm not saying on this day or on that day or on whatever day, I'm saying on average, you were, let's in this case a 5-day average, because maybe it's not 215, maybe it's not 211, maybe it's something in the middle, maybe it's, 213.267, whatever. That is your real body weight, which kind of drowns out these random fluctuations due to having a good day, a bad day, a high sodium day, a low water intake day. Maybe your final meal yesterday was at 7 p.m. or maybe it was at midnight, because those are going to have a dramatic impact on what your body weighs the next day. But this is all random temporary, fluctuation. This is not actually indicative of what your true dry body weight is. It's kind of like looking at the difference between climate and weather. Because, hell, Toronto, where I am right now, is freezing as shit, unfortunately. But a couple weeks ago, we had one day where it was miraculously plus 14 and sunny. So if you were to just look at that day, you can assume, wow, Toronto's beautiful in March, when in reality, no, it sucks dick. At the end of the day, the problem isn't the outcome. The fundamental problem, which summarizes pretty much this entire video, is the expectation. Everybody out there just simply has an underestimation of how much fat they really need to lose in order to achieve whatever physique they are going for in their mind. I know that that's definitely something I learned the hard way when I did my first show. That's actually why the next year when I competed again, that time I came in at 169.5, almost 9 pounds lighter than I was the year before, and I took like a solid month and a half longer in my overall competition prep. More weight loss, more time, and fortunately, at least in my case, a much better physique and also a better placing. Alright guys, that about does it for me and this video. I hope you guys found it helpful. And I guess the last thing I want to say, which doesn't actually relate to this, but relates to the future, because the next video that will come out, hopefully first week of April, is going to be a little different. It is going to be the beginning of Ascension Season 4, officially announcing it now on YouTube. I actually already have announced it about a week or so ago on Instagram. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. This time around, we are doing things a little different. This time around, we're doing things a little bit more classical, to not give too much away. Either way, yeah, look out for that. I'll see you then.